Hello, welcome to the Climbing Consciousness. Forgiveness is a very essential trait, as is compassion. And those two traits go together oftentimes. To be compassionate often requires a level of forgiveness at a deep, innate level. And possessing a trait of forgiveness or a trait of compassion is different from just being compassionate or being forgiving to somebody because you think it's the right thing to do or because you think it's a good thing to do. If you're forgiving somebody or being compassionate to them just because you think that it's the right thing to do or the good thing to do, it's still a temporary trait, and it's not permanently established in your being as something that you are. If you truly have compassion and you have the ability to forgive, you embody those traits. And if you truly are a compassionate person, you truly are a forgiving person, then it will not be a task for you to forgive somebody. It will simply be how you respond. It will simply be a part of your nature to forgive, to be compassionate, as just part of your nature. It's wise to be compassionate and forgiving. Although it is tempting to seek revenge, if someone does wrong to you, it seems almost just to get even with them. There's a certain kind of feeling of justice, knowing that if someone does wrong to you, then you should do equal wrong to them in order that you're on an even plane, so that you will not get taken advantage of, and that they won't get away with what they're doing without any kind of ramification. But the problem with constantly getting even with somebody else is that if they're a person that's doing you wrong and they're doing you an injustice, if you are spending your effort to get even with them, that means that you are allowing yourself to resort to the same injustices as they are. When somebody does something to you that is not just, when somebody does something to you that is of ill character, of ill means, it has no effect whatsoever on your character. If you get tricked, if you get stolen from, if you get physically hurt by somebody with ill motives, that has no effect on your character. So it's unwise to constantly get even with somebody if they're doing you an injustice, because by doing that, you are hurting your own character just to make sure that this person who is acting to you in ways of low character will get what's coming to them. Don't worry about that. They will get what's coming to them in their own ways. The karmic ramifications of what they're doing to you are going to play out for them no matter what. It isn't your job to give them what they deserve. It isn't your job to make sure that you stand up for yourself, to make sure that you prove your dignity. It isn't necessarily your job to make sure that a person who does an injustice to you gets treated from you with the same kind of injustice as punishment. A person who does an injustice will receive the karmic ramifications of it as a law. And that law will be obeyed by the universe. It does not have to be you. There's many human beings. There's many forces. You're not the only one. You do not have to resort to lows just to get even with somebody. And that is why it's wise to live from compassion and to live from forgiveness. To live from compassion and forgiveness means to live from your own character, not to be swayed by the injustices of others, not to be tempted by trickery or injustice or any kind of ill motive. To simply forgive the actions of another, to forgive them, takes away the power of their action. Because most of the reason behind an ill motive is to take the power from the victim. If you respond to that injustice with forgiveness, you say, "You've done me an injustice, but I forgive you." It robs that person of the opportunity to take your power. Because even though an injustice has been done to you, even though a harm has been done to you, you have not responded to it. And therefore, their action halts there. Compassion has a very high place of power because it stops the ability from somebody else to take power from you. Because when you're living from compassion, you aren't holding on to your power. You aren't holding on to power. You see power as something that comes and goes, and that's better off evenly distributed. Living from forgiveness creates a very powerful effect in any situation involving a fighting, or a war, or an argument. Because coming from a place of compassion ceases the duality of the fight and forces an outside observance to take place of what's going on. Because when you come from compassion and forgiveness, essentially there is a choice to not engage in the fight, to not engage in the argument. And when there's an act, a courageous act, to disengage from the turmoil, an outer observance of the problems is easier to see. And it does much good to your heart and to all others around you to forgive. Oftentimes, to respond to an act of injustice by means of forgiveness will likely change the actions of the person who did that injustice to you, because they will see the difference of your behavior. And they might see why it might be a better course of action than the way they're currently doing it.